So think about the way things were before, right? You would find what you wanted to do, go off and say, hey, this is the kind of job that I want. It would fit your background. If you have a degree, if you have the experience, those are the things you will go after. You show up on your day one for your interview. You might have a couple of rounds of interviews. You may have a panel in front of you, but the point is that you were in front of someone. They're able to see you, see your presence, experience everything, all the essence and all the really cool things about you. You're standing in front of them and talking to them physically. Those days are gone. The pandemic has disrupted all of that, where now hiring managers, people who are interviewing are realizing and understanding the power of video as a first point of entry to you, a first point of connection. Because if they're not connecting with you, no way you're going to be able to get this second opportunity. And so what does this mean for you? It means that, number one, you have to now have a different approach and a different strategy. Have a completely different way in the way you show up on camera, because it is different than when you are walking in physically. And so being able to cultivate yourself is going to be extremely critical, to throw everything out that you knew and understand before we were standing and interviewing in front of a video. Everything you thought you knew is now disrupted. The world is changing, and it means everything around us is changing, including the way we interview is even being disrupted. And so think about it. Before, when you would prepare to go in to physically see someone. And that world over the last couple of years has drastically changed. And so what happens is I get these surprises all the time from folks saying, I answered all the questions, I did everything right, and I still didn't get the job. I still got beat out. Because I'm trying to help folks understand, and this is why this is so critical for us to spend this time together, that it is not about you being the smartest one in the room, being able to answer all the questions the right way. To be quite honest with you, they're interviewing 30 other people that are going to answer the question the right way, right? So it's our ability to be able to connect in ways that we never have before. And so it's very different now connecting virtually. You're remote. And so many of us are going into all of this like we've done all the time. We get up, we prepare, and we get on. We get the kind of the bit of arrogance that comes along with that. Say, oh, I know I got this job. I know I got this opportunity. This is it. I've been doing this 20 years, 15 years. Not understanding that everything around them has been disrupted. And so even the way that you have to prepare in order to win is completely different now than what you used to do. And many of us are not putting in the time and the work and the effort in order to make sure that we are differentiated when we show up. Well, what do I mean by that? What I mean is this. When you connect with someone through video, you don't have the same opportunity as you do physically, which means they've got to be able to connect to the attractiveness of your spirit. So we get up, we do our hair, do all this stuff, we go get knowledgeable, we get excited, and then we forget is the most important part to all of this. Is you've got to cultivate something so powerful within that when you show up and when you get on camera and you're in the room, that you influence and you move that room in ways that no one else can. And that takes your ability to be able to cultivate something deeper within you. And that's what we're getting ready to address and talk about now. Because the very first thing that has to happen is you've got to have such a high and incredible and amazing belief about yourself that you leave that imposter at home. And what do I mean by that? Many of us have what's called the syndrome, the imposter syndrome, where we feel like we're not good enough. Many of us are saying, hey, I've never been a part of the technical world. I don't really understand artificial intelligence or Internet of Things. And people use all of these big words and I'm intimidated. And so that probably is not the space for me. So here's what I'm here to tell you. There is no place in this world where we're going that you do not have permission and the authority to dominate. Whatever is in you has been placed in you for a reason. And there's no industry or no world that's moving beyond us that's going to stop you from getting to your destination, which is your purpose. And so you've got to fill yourself with something so incredible that the imposter cannot even live within you, because you have built up and said that I have no fear. I don't have low self-esteem when it comes to my abilities, because I know that I have been made for something greater. That I know that every person around me that has been talking negativity to me, they mean me harm because they themselves are where they've been for the last 10 or 15 years. So they're comfortable with where I am at their level. And so they're not going to cheer me on. And so you've got to speak to yourself. And I've stated this over and over again, speaking to yourself and speaking over yourself, going beyond and going upwards, so that you know that you're speaking much higher, a higher level of ability, so that the imposter has no room, because you've created no room for it to live and to stay in you. And so you have to start there. The number two thing, and I know people get surprised by this when I talk about this, is that because artificial intelligence and chatbots and the world is becoming so filled with digital capacity, that's really outpacing our ability to even keep up, that your empathy and your kindness stands out in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. And so by cultivating yourself to be a kinder, gentler person who thinks about the world around them before you think of yourself even, that shows up on camera. It shows up on camera when you care. And it's not just about the job. It is about the fact that you're coming in to bring your skill sets in, to come and serve, and to bring the organization to places that they themselves never even began to think about or imagine they could be, because you have a seat at the table and you have a voice and a place in the building and in the room. And because your presence will be there, this company can feel comfortable having you in their presence, because you bring so much around you that people are simply attracted to what you bring to the atmosphere. And so they know that if they want to grow profit, if they want to have greater profitability, that they got to surround themselves with teams of people who are caring, who have humility, who are not coming in with total arrogance and ego. And so I'm asking each of you to stop, to pause, and to really take a look at what is it going to take to make you a better person. Because you're not just becoming a better person just for the people around you, but through your kindness and through everything that you bring, it presents you opportunity to move to the next level in your life. And the more you go up, the more you take us with you. And every place you walk and everywhere you go, you bring all of us along with you. Because we know that when you are strategically placed somewhere, you are going to build teams and you are going to create experiences for people that only you can do. That's why we need you there. And so when I talk about our ego, what I'm talking about is the little thing in us that rises up to make us believe that we are better, not only than the people around us, but we've pumped ourselves up so much, but we haven't lived up to it. So let's think about what that looks like. If you ever have someone who said, oh yeah, I have 20 years of experience, I've been doing this work for all of this time, and great, but the world has gone on. So what you did 20 years ago doesn't even matter in this time. So now you still over here talking about what you used to do, and you haven't read a book in the last 10 years. You haven't even read a book in the last couple of months, because you should be reading and cultivating yourself. Every week, there's new information that we can't even keep up with. And so we can't allow our ego to take us places that we can't sustain. So the key is to do the work and translate and turn ego into boldness and courage. That's where we need to be. So if we're going to be anywhere, we're walking in bold saying, what can I do to make your business better, to bring more value to you and your organization? See, that's what I'm showing up and doing, because it's not about me and my 20 years. It's what is it I'm going to do to translate that 20 years into 100 years of new learning, so that I can come into your world and bring more value to everyone around me. That's the power. So when we're talking about the third thing with expanding your research capacity, what does all of that mean and why do we care? So imagine the world continues to grow and continues to evolve, and you really know your business very well, but you don't understand the disruptions that are about to happen to your business. What macroeconomic factors are going to impact my small business or are going to impact my industry? For perfect example, what happened when the pandemic came to the supply chain? Supply chains were completely disrupted. And so if you have an opportunity to say, my research that I'm going to do is going to go deep, and here's where you get started. You get started by saying, I want to know what post-recovery looks like. And not only do I want to know what post-recovery looks like for X industry, but I want to know globally around the world, what's happening in Europe, what's happening as a result of what we're seeing now between Russia and Ukraine, and what will happen if we see another duo Cold War impact us, and how's that going to impact my business next year? How are gas prices that have been impacted throughout this entire, the last year and a half, and even now more so over the next couple of months? How do we project that that's going to impact the world that I'm in today? And so it's about being curious, constantly curious, to ask more questions and allow your research to take you to more dimensions. You're already on Google every day. Every day you're researching something. Now what I'm asking you to do, I'm asking you to get deliberate. I'm asking you to get intentional. I'm asking you to start looking at more dimensions of your life, your business, and your career, and begin to bring all of that together so that you can study the times and understand what tomorrow looks like. There's power in being able to walk into a room and give people information that only you could have given to them had you studied thyself and show and get thyself approved. There's power. And so we really want you to double down, to start to deep think more, start to leverage your search engines differently, disrupt that habit of just going out and meaninglessly looking at information. And I want you to start getting deliberate in the way that you are going to deliver value to others through the knowledge that you are capturing, looking at things more holistically. That's where we want you to be. And so number 4, all around, is probably one of the most critical things that we forget. See, we go look at the job, and then we go look and say, I don't have all the skills. And so then you walk away. Now realizing that your superpower is in the cell. See, your superpower is in the cell of what you don't have. You don't want to play with me. See, it's about what you don't have, because there are things that you do, and you have to look at this as an exchange. So let's talk about what that looks like. Now you've sat down and mapped out that there are 30 things in this role that are needed. You look at yourself and you're saying, wow, I'm missing 6 key things in this role. Okay, cool. Well, as long as you kind of have that 80-20 rule, and sometimes 70-30, you're good. If there are 30% of the skills that you don't have, don't walk away. You sell yourself. So let's see what this looks like. Now you're sitting on 30% of things that you're missing in the role, but you bring 70%. But here's the deal. What you're not counting is the other percent that you're bringing that's going to make it 100. You're bringing more skills. And that's what we want to make sure you cultivate. So let's talk about how that goes down. 30% you sell and say, Well, I can ramp up really quickly on a lot of the things that you desire for me to have. I'm missing a few things, but I'm very familiar with the area. And I know that within a very short period of time, I can really ramp up and come up to speed to deliver value. But here are a couple of other things that I bring to the table that the role did not describe. So you want your business to grow in profitability, and you want to be able to 10x your business. Who wouldn't want to do that? So the experiences that I bring will enable you to be able to continue to grow the profitability of your business through some unique skills that I have in another industry that I think that we're going to be able to partner together with what you want to achieve. And this wasn't on the job description. However, I know this because I read your annual report. Again, research. I looked at the annual report. I looked to see the trajectory. I followed the person and looked at a TED Talk that they did. I looked at their YouTube channel to look at interviews that they were in. And so I'm able now to take all the research, what's happening in the future, understanding the dynamics. And that's what I brought to the interview. It's called real-time thinking. That's not on the job description. But your ability to be able to real-time think, to take information from multiple places, to disseminate what's happening with that information, and then to be able to give the person in front of you a clue about the future. That's power. So you sell not only what you don't have, but you sell what's not even on the list of things that they need because you're anticipating their need. And this is what makes you so attractive. It is your spirit of cultivation, of everything you're cultivating in yourself, so that when you show up with so much more power than what the role required. That's what we're going to work on. And another thing I really get surprised by all the time is that thing when people will say, but I answered all the questions right. I hit every question and did everything that the person needed me to do. And that's funny to me. That is not why you move up. It is not what makes people attractive because you're giving them the answers that they want to hear. What makes your interview unique and special is your ability to storytell. And so that's what we were just talking about. That means you have to deeply understand every characteristic of what the role wants. And then you got to go beyond that. You have to say, I want to know the root and the motivation of this role. So then you have to go do your research and say, why are they hiring this role in the first place? Because you got to get to the root and the soul of the person and the individual. And what do they need? So that you incorporate what's needed in your story so that there's an immediate connection. See, now these days, people don't have time to connect to you. You got 10 seconds. That's it. And if you haven't connected somehow in that first minute, well, then it's a rough process for you. But try walking in the door, adding value the moment that you open your mouth, researching and understanding holistically everything about the role, understanding the macroeconomic indicators and the factors that are going to impact that role, and then being able to tell the person in front of you, well, did you know in the next 5 years where this industry is going? That's what I'm excited about. And you show them your excitement about everything holistically that you can bring to the table. That is the beauty of what it means to cultivate you. Your ability to take information in from multiple places. Your ability then to stand in front of the person and let them connect to you because you're bringing something so powerful to them. I want you to think about while you're in the midst of sharing who you are, your background, and talking to someone about who you are as a person. And then you have 20 other people that do the same thing you do. What separates you and what differentiates you is your purpose of why it is that you're doing what you're doing. Because you're going to come along and say that I'm in healthcare, but the whole purpose of me being in healthcare is because I was called to help people have better lives. And so I'm able to fulfill my purpose in this industry while I work. And imagine telling someone that you get reward out of seeing people's lives change, and that you were here placed on this earth so that you could do so much good. And by working for this company, it allows you to do that good while you make them even better as a corporation. Isn't that a beautiful story? Now you imagine how they walk away from you and saying, wow, I met an incredibly amazing person today who talked about why they're here on this earth. Because see, you know your destination. You know your end state. And so the company can feel comfortable trusting you because you're going to come in and understand how do you take your gifts and your skills and elevate them to the next level. That's your story, your purpose-driven story. Last thing on purpose. So think about how you identify yourself, your identity. And the fact that when people ask you, what do? You say, oh, I do this and I'm in this industry. I want you to change your mindset. I want you to start to think about not only why you're here on this earth, but imagine the story that I just gave about the person in healthcare. Being in healthcare isn't what the real story is. The real story to the person standing in front of them is the fact that they were born in this world to help others, to serve others. And so you're going to bring your servant leadership, your servant mentality to the company. See, that's what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about the fact that you have 20 years in health. I mean, that's awesome. But then they have probably 3 or 4 other candidates that you're competing with. Your job is to wipe your competitor straight on off the map. And the only way that you can make your competition go away and bury them is by you showing up, being differentiated in ways that you've never even seen yourself before, which means you got to take the time to not only cultivate your knowledge, your skill, your research, and all the things I've been talking about, but you got to take the time to take a look at who you are as a person. And that's the sell. The sell is what you were brought on this earth to do, to achieve, in the fact that you're going to partner with this company and it will be an exchange. You will exchange the power of what you bring to the table. You will exchange your purpose and your gifts and bring them to new levels in their business that they've not seen before. And in turn, you'll get a check. You'll get promotion. You'll get all the things, benefits that they offer. But what you offer is greater than what they can give you. And don't you ever forget that. I need you to hear what I'm going to tell you. Standing in a room and impressing people when you're in front of them is one thing. You've been doing that all your life. Adding dimensions in front of you, where there's a camera on one side and you on the other side, it's a whole nother ball game. And you have to learn how to be effective and impactful. This goes beyond interviews, because now we're doing business. We're closing deals. We're interacting with people, and we have to influence now. And influencing people via virtual means takes your ability to cultivate that. You can't just show up with you. How are you just going to show up and you haven't practiced and rehearsed and put yourself in a situation where you can be the best at it? That's what this is about. It is about becoming the best that you can be so that you can make the connections and influence the room and influencing everyone around it virtually. It's much harder. And so it means that you need people around you who are going to tell you the truth about yourself. Not yes people who say, oh, yeah, that was good. And they tell you that because they don't want you to do good. So now they got you all messed up. You walking in thinking you're good. And they're telling you that because they don't even know the measure of what it takes. And so now you're listening to someone who's never made a decision about that person on the other side of a camera. Okay, so they're not experts. You're not the expert. But yet and still, you want this position. Right? And so the big thing here that you want to get to is your ability to be able to surround yourself with people who are simply going to tell you the truth at all costs. I'll tell you why this is important. Because you're going to get somewhere and you're going to get feedback. And I'm going to give you my story. So I was told during an interview that not only they felt that I didn't have all the qualifications, but they also felt that I wasn't a good fit for the culture. So now I'm sitting on camera getting this feedback about not being good enough for the culture, and I have to respond. Well, guess what? I got so torn up from people getting it right and being my best. People around me who are saying that wasn't your best. Treese, when you talk, you're too loud, bring it down. Treese, your interview, you move too much of your hand. Giving me brutal, honest facts that when I got that feedback, you want to know what I said? And why the honesty around me helped prepare me for that moment? I smiled. And I said, I'm going to take your guidance on that. But let me ask you a question. What do you think I do bring to the environment? Because I probably could agree with you if I understood the culture more. But is there anything at all that you've liked about our exchange today that helps you understand that maybe there's another part of the organization that would love to embrace my skills? And guess what? That was the answer. He needed to also test me, to test my ability of resilience. And am I going to get upset, falter? Guess what? Many would, because it is a very awkward situation to be on camera and to have to deal with brutal honesty. And so all I'm saying is this: to stand out and to differentiate yourself, you've got to surround yourself with the truth. It's okay to have people that are building you up. You need that too. But you also can't stay in a build-up moment if that build-up is going to keep you in mediocrity. You want to be bigger than that. And so getting people around you, building your personal board of director of people who are truly going to tell you the truth, you better get on that immediately, because that's a critical part of you being able to be successful in this space. And I'm just going to keep this real. I'm going to give you some brutal honesty right now. 85 million jobs will disappear by 2025. 100 million plus new jobs will be introduced. And more than 1 billion people won't have the skills. And they will get completely left behind. I hope that's brutal enough for you. Because the thing is that you ignoring all of the signs around you to cultivate your purpose, to start learning multiple things. It's not good enough just knowing one thing and doing one thing. Even if you work today and you're secure on your job, that's all great. But there are 2 or 3 or 4 more things that you can be doing out there that are going to elevate you to places that are so much greater than where you are today. And that's what we want to deal with. We want to deal with folks that are stuck in this, what we call the bottom of the S curve. And if you're familiar with what the S curve is, it's our way of recognizing and understanding growth within innovation, and we can apply it to our own lives. Is that growth is very slow when you are new at something, when something is new. You're a little fearful, it's new, it's unfamiliar, there's a lot of ambiguity. And so you're not out doing much more. You're staying focused, you're honing in on your skill. You're mastering your abilities. And in this situation, it's your ability with that interview that you're going after. And so now you're at the top of the S curve. You're doing awesome. You're an expert. You're the go-to person. You've mastered it all. And what happens? The neurons that continue to charge when you're learning something new, the dopamine that's needed in order to be able to stay thrilled and excited about your job, you tap out. And people wonder why they tap out. And part of that is because we're not challenging ourselves. Again, the S curve goes up. You have to then say, okay, what's my next challenge? So for me, for my life, I know the criticality of doing multiple things at one time. So it's not just about the technology work that you're doing. It's now going off and saying, what new business can I start? What nonprofit can I be a part of? Now we're in a gig economy where I can go and give contract services to multiple companies so that by the time I get home, I have maximized my 12-hour day where I'm doing multiple things and contributing to the society in ways that I never have before. Those days are gone. That we are now interviewing for one thing, moving towards another, and it's just one job. When you show up and you tell a company that you've had a startup company, you've worked with startup companies, you show up and you tell them that you work for nonprofits, it is the holistic you coming in the door, that you don't stop at the top of the S curve. That you are an avid learner, a serial entrepreneur, a person that's going to breathe life into the organization like never before. You show up with that kind of purpose-driven talk and conversation. It is powerful what you can move with you. So the final thing that we don't do enough. You know, my husband always has gotten after me all the time and says, Trish, you got to record yourself. You got to see yourself. Because I think people have good intentions. You know, they'll tell you did a great job. They even make you feel like you got the role. And then you get the call that says we went with someone else. See, I don't play in that field anymore. I choose. All these steps that I'm giving you now is how you have a choice to where there are multiple deals on the table. And all of them come at you and say, you choose. So you got to put yourself in the driver's seat, which means I continue to say cultivate your abilities, your skills. You have to cultivate yourself. Hear me. It takes work and practice. And then you've got to look at yourself. And so it is very important that you just take a moment and take Zoom and just cut the recorder on and watch you. In the sessions that you're working with the person that's giving you hardcore feedback, watch yourself. Why? Because the more you see you, and the more you can look in the mirror and see your power, it's going to give you new language. It's going to give you a new ability to be able to connect to people. And it's going to tell you the things that you don't want to repeat. So recording, and now we have all of the things around us, our mobile phone. How often do you record yourself for non-vain reasons? I'm not talking about recording yourself to get on Instagram and TikTok. I'm talking about recording yourself for purpose so that you can see your purpose come to life. So that you can see you come to life, because the moment that you enter the virtual room with the person across from you, they won't ever forget you. They won't forget who you are and what you bring to the table. You will be forever embedded in their memory. And so when they sit down to make a decision, who's first? It's you. Because you took the time to invest in yourself. You cultivated yourself. You did the research. You did all the work to get to this space. You got the brutal honesty, and you brought yourself in this person's space in ways that no one else could. See, that's what this is about. So, if you want more of this, more opportunity to cultivate who you are, follow me on Trish the Unicorn, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Let's go.